1969, 40 years ago, a point in history virtually unrivalled for its exciting musical pedigree. The Beatles were on the verge of collapse after rewriting culture itself. A wave of baby boomer optimism and teenage rebellion had brought us Woodstock, Free Love and Flower Power, only for Altamont to turn the taste bitter. As the 60s became the 70s, the stage was clear for one band to make their mark. And what a mark it was. 1969 was the year the Zeppelin really took off, and here at the BBC, the band, Led Zeppelin, commenced a string of incendiary sessions that still rock our world today. With me to talk about them is guitar master, studio wizard, songwriting genius, general of the guitar army, my personal guitar hero, none other than Mr. Jimmy Page. Hello, Jimmy.
Well, hello, Sean. Thank you very much. What an introduction. How can I live up to that?
I don't. I think it's all downhill from here,
It
from
is,
me.
isn't it, really?
We open with communication breakdown there. That's just to give us a little taster to put us back there, basically. We're back here at the BBC. I suppose I'd like to start by asking you what feelings and memories spring to mind when you start thinking about these sessions. Have you got any first thoughts on this?
Well, the whole thing about the BBC and these programmes and these windows of opportunity that it gave for the band to come in and actually do what it did, which was reflect the fact that it was a truly live band and a creative band. And the first one that we have, which is the John Peel's Top Gear in 3rd of March '69. It just gave us an opportunity to come in and do what we had on our album.
Yeah.
So, for example, a number like Dazed and Confused was never going to get played on the air on any programs. We weren't going to be in the habit of putting out singles. So it gave an opportunity for anyone who'd actually accessed the album already to hear how, and maybe hadn't heard us, to hear how we actually were moving the songs and making them take on a life of their own, if you like, each time we would play them. And so we bring a fresh angle to them.
And because 1969, let's contextualise it for a moment for the Zeppelin aficionados. That I guess everybody will know this, but that was the huge start point for it all, in a sense, wasn't it? Obviously, the year before was when the Led Zeppelin 1 came out, but you're starting to tour America in a big way. You're getting ready you're recording Led Zeppelin 2 on the run. Is that what the context of these first BBC sessions fit into?
Well, it sort of does. I mean, the first album comes out in 1968, and as you say, by this time in March '69, we've been through America, and we've really annihilated the place. There's no two ways about it. We went in there with obviously the material from the first album and a few other songs that came from other sources that we had, and we'd played in San Francisco, and we weren't top of the, we were like second, third act down on the billing, and the main act just didn't turn up.
Was that Vanilla Fudge?
No, it wasn't.
That was a different one, was it?
It wasn't. It was Country Joe and the Fish.
They
came one night, and then the other nights it just didn't turn up. And by the time we got to New York to play on the East Coast, the Iron Butterfly, who was supposed to play, they didn't turn up either. So you can imagine that this was really such a force that was going through, because nobody had really heard anything like this with this sort of energy and vitality, which was the idea of the group, of course. Yeah,
and that. So in 1969, Cream had split up. Obviously, they were kind of billed by some as the first supergroup, but off the back of the Yardbirds. The Hendrix Experience were hunkering down and doing. They'd done Electric Ladyland, I suppose, but Jimmy was starting to go a little bit off the beam at that point. Did you feel that it was your time to come in '69 and really nail it down?
Well, it was quite clear from that time in San Francisco that there was such a reputation that was spreading for us that went right across the States. And this came out of the Yardbirds, because we were doing really well with the Yardbirds before it finally fragmented to its final end. And in those days, people were very sort of muso-oriented, and they followed what people were doing, you see. So I'd got a pretty fair reputation from the Yardbirds' activities, so they were really keen to come and hear what was going on. And then once they came to hear this thing, it was just just knocked on for 6, you know. So, so in context to us, and I'm looking at, the 1969, we were working solidly all the way through 1969. In fact, we were one day short of 6 months of doing America, because we got the door open a bit, in 1968 and 60, beginning of 1969, and we just kicked the door open and went piling in.
Led Zeppelin and the BBC Sessions with Jimmy Page and Sean Keaveney on 6 Music.
The first part of the BBC Sessions, like you get the double CD. The first CD is made up of 5 sessions in places like Maida Vale and the Playhouse Theatre. Do you remember the differences in the recording environment? Do you remember what was it like to record with the BBC? Because I always have this imagination that it was men in white coats and they were saying, "Turn that down, Jimmy Page." But were you a bit able to get involved a bit more in the sort of engineering process of it?
I think I went in the early days with quite a small amplifier anyway. So I wasn't going in with a big... I'd been a studio musician, so it was a bit horses for courses for me, and for John Paul Jones as well. We wouldn't have taken in huge equipment in the early stages. It was very disciplined, certainly, but by nature of the engineers who were recording at the time, they were pretty good engineers. I mean, some real standout engineering qualities here, I must say.
Well, one of the things...
obviously you would want to sort of hear playbacks and check it, but, it was pretty much okay. Certainly in these early sessions,
I mean, I don't know if you've got a copy here, but we one of the things that we thought we'd bring to attention, which is quite amusing, is the audition panel. Were you aware of this at the time, that every BBC sessioneer had to go through an audition panel, about 5 or 6 people who sort of decreed whether it was this band was worthy of a BBC session? And there's some great stuff down here, to be honest, Jimmy. You may be disappointed with some of their opinions. You got yeses, though, across the board, but you got everything from a very moody group, knockout lead blues singer, even though a touch of distortion hits my ear, it's the sort of sound that turns me on. Somebody else says contemporary style, all electric, all screaming soul pop group. But then it sort of goes off a little bit here. English blues group, longing to sound like Muddy Waters, but failing necessarily through being derivative. Certainly broadcastable, but for me it's unconvincing, and I'd rather hear the genuine article.
Well, that's a purist there, yeah.
It's just a lovely little artifact, that, though, isn't it? To think that
just
people would be, sort of, actually, we might pass on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But you were lucky you got through, Jimmy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
we've also got a little clip here from you mentioned the very first session, John Peel's Top Gear, in March. We've got a clip here from a guy called Pete Ritzimer, who was the engineer, and this is how he remembered everything. Basically, let's have a little listen to this.
It wasn't until I was walking down the street towards the theatre, the Playhouse Theatre where it was held, that I could hear the very big sound of drums coming out of the theatre, and I thought, oh, that's loud. And this was Bonham setting up his kit. The drums were loud, but because they were all very experienced in studios, they weren't sort of silly with their equipment. It was quite easy to get good separation, so you got the drums and the recording on the drum mics, the guitars were there and the bass was there, so on and so forth. I'd come across Jimmy Page on quite a few sessions, and he's a very experienced, famous, at the time, very famous session guy. I know he used to be Little Jimmy Page, and Big Jim Sullivan used to be the ace team on a band session. So obviously he knew everything he did, very experienced guy. He knew exactly what can happen in a BBC studio, and he knew what amplifier to bring and how to set it, and he recognised absolutely any limitations of the equipment, and there was no problem at all with that. The only problem that could arise on those sort of sessions is that if you didn't get the balance right, if you didn't get the instruments balanced right, too much of something, too little of something, you would have to do the track again. You just simply have to play it again.